What's going on YouTube? Today we're going to talk about the enumeration, okay, in the post-exploitation phase. So if you remember, in the cyber kill chain we talked about the phases that an attacker goes through in order to achieve their objective of the attack. So basically we listed the reconnaissance. After reconnaissance we had weaponization, and after weaponization we had delivery of the payload, delivery, then exploitation. After exploitation we had installation, and then we had command and control, and last one it was actions on objectives. Okay, so post-compromise is the phase after exploitation here. So it's between exploitation and install. So you exploit the machine some way using a delivery payload or a public exploit, you gain access. So that's where post-exploitation. Okay, today we're going to talk about the steps that we need to take, okay, when it comes to enumeration, to be able to move to installation, C2C, and actions on objectives. What are the things that we need to enumerate? Okay, so first, when gaining access to a machine, the first thing that we have to enumerate is the user ID, the current user ID, and the privileges it has. Okay, we want to understand our current privileges. That's the first thing. Now the other thing is that we need to understand the network connections. So for next we list the network connections. So why this is important? Listing network connections allow us to understand what kind of open ports or the ports that the victim machine is listening on. If we know what are the open ports the machine is listening on, okay, we'll be able to find out if there are other machines connected to the current machine, which means we can find out if we can perform lateral movement. Or if there are other services that the machine is using to communicate with other machines. Okay, so we have to find out the network connections. Now, the user ID, the privileges, the network connections. The third thing is that the running processes. Right? The cron jobs. Linux or Windows. Cron jobs in case of Linux, or let's put / schedule tasks in case we were talking about Windows. Okay. 5. So why running processes? Listing the running processes is important. Again, when we get the output of the running processes, we match the output with the network connections. We can understand what are the processes that are communicating over the network, and what is the user ID that's running each process. This is important if you want to exploit specific process to perform privilege escalation. Cron jobs or scheduled tasks. Sometimes some cron jobs or scheduled tasks are run under the admin user. So if we can exploit these to our advantage and make these cron jobs or scheduled tasks run our own code, okay, we can escalate the privileges as well. So this one is useful for privilege escalation. Here again, privilege escalation. Network connections for lateral movement and privileged escalation. User ID and privileges also for privileged escalation. Okay, let's switch the page now. Okay, so 5. Suppose we want to know if the machine is part of an Active Directory environment. So this is also important. So we want to find out if the machine is part of Active Directory environment or not. Is it part of it or not? this is also important to find out. If it is part of an Active Directory environment, the objective completely changes. It will become it will shift the objective from privilege escalation on the current machine as a final objective to taking over the full domain controller account. Okay, let's say the answer to this question is yes, it is part of an Active Directory. So what do we do? In this case, we try to get the list of all the users in the machine. So yes, let's put this. Let's draw two paths here. So this is yes. So what do we do? Okay, here we start to enumerate all users, get users who are part of the Active Directory environment. We can also specify the criteria, a criteria where we search for specific users who belong to specific groups. Get groups. Okay. Understand what are the privileges of each user, privileges of each group. Now, in case it was not, so let's say it is no here. It's no. If it is no, what are we going to do? We're going to enumerate for installed applications. Right? We're going to find out if there are AVs installed on the machine, antiviruses, firewalls. So these two, so these steps are common in each cases, in both cases, yes or no. Okay. Another important step, if the machine is part of Active Directory, to take is that to understand if the machine is actually on perimeter or off perimeter. So on perimeter, it means that the machine is part of an Active Directory environment which is hosted in the company's parameters. Okay, the organization parameter. It's using the organization's hardware and software to host the Active Directory environment. Off perimeter, it means it is hosted on the cloud. So sometimes you get access to a machine, you exploit a machine which is part of a cloud network. About the sponsor of this video, CloudWays. So CloudWays, guys, is a very effective, fast and reliable hosting you can choose for your website or your project. It has various features, security, performance, flexibility, and basically you can create a free account in here. You can go to start free, create a free account, and you will be able to immediately get access to the dashboard. In the dashboard, as you can see, you can select the type of your project. If you are planning to create a WordPress website, right, WooCommerce, PHP website, Laravel project, or Magento. Okay, so depending on the project you have. Now most projects, they select WordPress, so you can select WordPress, for example, name the application, the server, and the project. And here's the cool features. You can connect you can make your website hosted in other platforms or hook it with other hostings. For example, Google Cloud, AWS, Linode, DigitalOcean, Vultr. So you can select all of these providers and link them, okay, to your project. So basically, at the end, you will relieve yourself with the management or the management overhead that comes when you host your website in one of these providers. For example, if you host your website alone in Google Cloud, you have to do server maintenance, you have to manage the servers from time to time, the updates, the patches. The same with AWS and Linode. But if you do that with the CloudWays, you will be able to create your website, create your hosting environment, connect it to Google Cloud, and they will do the management for you. Here you select the server size, depending on how much usage or how much traffic you predict for the website. Based on that, you select the capabilities of the CPU, 2 CPU, 4 virtual CPUs, 15 GB, and here is the bandwidth. So what's the expected bandwidth you guess for the website? So say it's 2 GB, you specify that here, and here the storage and database and the location. It's recommended also to select the location that's close to your customers. So where the customers are coming from, you select the location based on here, and finally you get the pricing, as you can see. So this calculator is live calculator here. As you can see, it changes, the price changes based on the features you set here. For example, if I increase the storage from 10 gigabyte to, say, you can select up to 50 gigabyte disk size for your application while on trial account. Yeah, so you can select more than, of course, 10 gigabyte, but since we are on trial account, we cannot select more than 50 gigabyte. Database, as you can see, the price changes per month. Okay, now let's talk about the security features. So basically that's what makes the platform so cool. By the way, it's a security features. So every project you do, for every hosting project you do on the platform, you get a dedicated firewall through which you can control access to the machine. You can set the ports, you can set the applications that can communicate with the internet. You can also, as you can see, login security. You can set a rate limiting for SSH and SFTP. Okay, if you have SSH server, people logging through SSH or SFTP, you can set rate limit. And bot protection from denial of service attacks, as well as database security, isolation of the applications. It's kind of virtualization for the applications, segmentation. SSH certificates are free, and you can also manage access through role management. And as you can see, CloudWays is taking care of all of this. By the way, you don't need to do anything. CloudWays is taking care of the maintenance and the management of all of this. They do the operating system security, and they also host bug bounty program to strengthen their security measures for the servers. End-to-end encryption. You can also configure two-factor authentication for your account, and you can also review the logins, device logins to your project or hosting account, as well as a GDPR compliance. If you are in the Europe, you will be automatically in compliance when you host your website with CloudWays. And lastly, guys, as you can see, CloudWays is hosting BFCM Prepathon this year, where it is actually a 3-day event, online event for developers, e-commerce store owners, digital agencies, where industry experts actually talk about topics like website security, performance, marketing strategies, industry needs, and a lot more, all aimed at helping you maximize your BFCM revenue. So make sure, guys, if you want to register to this exciting event, it's free to attend, and you can. I'm gonna put the link of this page in the video description, okay, along with the video of the event, so you can watch it and you can attend that for free. Okay, so back to the scenario here. So after we explored the scenarios, or after we explored couple steps, some of the steps that we can take or we need to take after the exploitation of a machine, let's now apply these steps live. Okay, now let's have the machine here, and let's close the board. Okay, so we have a Windows machine here, guys, and by the way, this is part of this challenge in TryHackMe, the lay of the land. We will go over the tasks and answer the questions. Okay, so after we deploy the machine, let's first do the first part. So let's say you got access to a machine. Let's now start PowerShell. Okay, adjusting the font. Okay. So who am I? So as you can see, the username is KKid D. Okay, so that's the username. Okay, then we will find out the current privileges of this user. Who am I? /priv. So these are the current privileges. See increase working set privilege, say change notify privilege, and machine account privilege. Now, why understanding these privileges is important. Sometimes users get privileges that they don't need. So you may see some of the privileges here, like say backup, say restore. These privileges can be exploited to perform privilege escalation. That's why we need to find out in every scenario what are the current privileges of every user. Okay, so now we found the user and its current privileges. Let's now enumerate the current network connections. So netstat -na. As you can see, we have a lot of the things. So let's now filter these. Netstat -na find string established. Nope. Double quotes. What about listening? So we get a list of the current connections on the ports the machine is listening on. Okay, so we have port 80, as you can see, it's listening on port 80, 88, 135, 389, 445. All of these ports are ports used by current services on the machine to perform a specific function. So they are open to the public. Now, another important aspect, guys, after finding out the network connections is to list the ARP table. ARP-A. As you can see, we can find out the IP address and the physical address of the computers that communicated with the target machine within the network. Okay, this could be helpful to see the communications between the network to scan the other machines for open ports and vulnerabilities. So these are the IP addresses and the corresponding matches of the physical addresses. Okay, now we mentioned something about Active Directory environments. Okay, if the machine is part of an Active Directory or not, how to find out. So we can issue system info find string and the word domain. As you can see, the machine is part of the domain thm-redteam.com. This is the primary domain controller. So the machine is part now of a domain controller. Now the focus of the further steps will be towards achieving or taking over the domain admin of this domain controller. Okay. Now there are a couple questions to answer before we proceed further. So let's see here. Before going any further, ensure the attached machine is deployed and try what we discussed. Is the attached machine part of the AD environment? Yes. If it is part of the AD environment, what's the name of the AD? Okay. So the name of the AD is THM Redteam. Okay. So let's go now and enumerate the users and the groups of the machine. Alright, let's see here, go to AV. Okay, so we found the machine that the machine is part of AD. Let's now retrieve the old user accounts. We can use this PowerShell CMD let. I guess I cannot copy here. Okay. So with this CMD we will get all of the user accounts. So we have many user accounts in here. It's important to go over every single account and understand the privileges of the account. Now, the first account is the administrator account. It's part of users, as you can see, and this is the domain it belongs to. The other one we have guest, also part of users and belongs to THM Redteam. We have the Kerberos account, Pierre Pittman. This refers to organization unit, and this is the domain controller. As you can see, this is the object class specified as user. If you go to the administrator, take a look at the object class here. It's also user. Okay, the SAM account name is administrator. And if you scroll all the way down, you get the list of all the other users. Okay, let's see here. We can also retrieve a user who is part of a specific group. For example, let's take this one. Say I want to let me copy the command back. Okay. So basically, I want to retrieve all users who are part of the group users. Okay, as an example, let's say we want to find members of another group. Domain admins, and here we change the DC. It is THM red team. So we have a problem here. Domain admins. Okay, let's try with users. The common name needs to be users actually. And here we get this. So users who are part of the common name users, THM red team, is only 1, 2, 3 users, of which we have one service account. It is the KRB, the Kerberos ticket account, and we have the guest, and we have the administrator. Now other users we have listed above are not part of the common name user. Okay, for example, let's take a look at Kevin Kidd. So Kevin Kidd is part of an organizational unit, which is THM. Okay, not part of the common name users. This user, for example, THM service user, is part of common name managed service accounts. So it's a managed service accounts. Another example is Pierre Pittman. He's also part of organizational unit, THM, not a common name. That's why we couldn't list the user here. Okay, let's see what are the questions we have to answer. Use the get add user filter search based command to list the available user accounts within THMOU in the thmredteam.com domain. How many users are available? Okay, so let's use that filter in this case. So what do? We're going to use the same command. Instead of common name, we're going to change this to OU, and instead of users we write THM. So we have all the users who belong to the organizational unit THM. So it's 1 admin, 2 Kevin, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 users in total who belong to this group. Okay, once you run the previous command, what's the user principal name of the admin account? So we have 6. This user principal name of the admin account. Let's see. So this is the admin account. Okay, as you can see. And this is the user principal name. So ideally, we would shift our goals, or we would focus our goals to take over this account, because this is the admin account in the Active Directory or the domain controller. Okay, now we understand the environment, the current user, the groups. Now before proceeding any further, okay, we need to find out the current protections on the machine, namely antiviruses, firewalls, IDS, IPS, logging tools, monitoring tools. All of these tools are important for the red team and the blue team as well. So basically, as a red teamer, you have to find out if antivirus is installed, because if you want to proceed to plant a backdoor or to achieve persistence, you have to make the backdoor able to evade the current protections of the machine. So let's now list all of the available security products installed. So I'm going to use this command using WMIC. Node AD. So if this command doesn't work, we can use another one using the get CIM instance CMD let. I don't understand why I have to copy this more than one time to work. Okay, since these two commands will not work because we are running a Windows Server system, so basically let's try them on my own machine. Okay, I understand now. So since we are running Windows Server Active Directory here, these commands will not work. These commands work only on a non-joined or a non-domain joined machine. So basically like normal Windows. Let's try them on my machine instead. PowerShell. As you can see, we get this output. We have Windows Defender installed. That's the current protection on my machine. Let's try with the other command using get CIM instance. And again, we get a similar output displaying that we have Windows Defender installed on this machine. Maybe that's how we get the current security products installed on a machine that's not part of an Active Directory tree. Okay. Again, we can achieve the same if we are specifically concerned if Windows Defender is installed. Okay. Now, since Windows Defender is installed on my machine, we can also find out if the service is running or not. So basically we can use get service when defend. As you can see, the service is running. Okay. Now normally the ideal scenario when we find out if a security service is running, we want to disable this. Okay. So we can start using the get MP computer status CMD let to again get the current Windows Defender status. So get before deciding if we need to disable this service or not. Select real-time protection enabled. So as you can see, the real-time protection feature in the current Windows Defender service is disabled, so it's false. I have disabled this by purpose. Okay. Now, what we can do here, okay, we want also to check if the firewall of the machine is running or not. So firewall is also part of the protection suite of a machine. So I'm gonna find out if the firewall is running or not. We can use also the same CMD let get net firewall profile, and we pipe that to format table name enabled. As you can see, the firewall on this machine is enabled on all three domains. On all domains, domain, private, public. So in public network is enabled and private network is enabled. Now ideally, let's see how we can set this firewall to be disabled. So set net firewall profile. The profile here is the domain. Okay. We will select public private enabled false. Access is denied. You see, the reason is that I'm running the PowerShell from my user. In order to disable the firewall, we need an elevated prompt. So let's do that. Let's close PowerShell and open it again, but with administrator privileges. As you can see, right now it's disabled. Okay, I can enable it again. True. So right now Windows Defender, the firewall is enabled. Okay, let's now check the current firewall rules. Okay, so we can also use get net firewall rule, select display name, the service display name. We want to find out what's the service using the port, enabled or not, and a description. Oh my god, all of these rules are enabled on my machine. I know it's very overwhelming to go over all of these rules, but you can again use the find string filter. For example, find. Okay, let's check the status of let's see here. So we have games here, as you can see, and they are set. Their status is set to true. As you can see, they can communicate with the they can send and receive outbound traffic. Let's check dying light game. Dying. As you can see, we get the status of this executable file, dying light game. So it's allowed to communicate, true. Okay. Now, why checking the firewall and Windows Defender is important? You may be asking me, it requires elevated privileges. So how is this related to a privilege escalation? So basically, checking the firewall and the protection installed on the machine is very important for the installation phase of the cyber kill chain. If you want to create a backdoor and safely place it on the machine without getting detected or getting caught. Okay, and that firewall, and that executable needs to be able to communicate with your server. So you have to find out if there is a protection on the machine and what are the firewall rules, and whether you need to disable the firewall or not. Okay, so now let's answer a couple questions on the task. Getting back to the machine here. Okay, let's see. Enumerate the attached Windows machine and check whether the host-based firewall is enabled or not. Checking if the firewall is enabled or not. Okay, let's go back. Let's take the command from here. Some way it should be here. Okay. So the firewall is disabled on this machine. So the answer to this question is no. Using PowerShell CMD such get MP threat can provide us with threats details that have been detected using Microsoft Defender. Run it and answer the following. What's the file name that causes this alert to record? Check resource section. So let's check the CMD. Honestly, it's the first time I see it. So to find out what's the thread that has been deleted, what's the file that causes this alert to record. So get the history of a detected threat. So you have to provide the threat ID, which we don't have. As job CIM session Let's check this out. Get MP threat catalog. Again, the threat ID, which we don't have. We want to get the list of all the threats that have been detected. So get MP threat, listing all detected threats. Gets active and past malware threats that Windows Defender detected on the computer. So we only run this, get MP threat detection. Let's try it out. So yeah, we have limited number. Let's check them out. So we have this. Let's go back to the question, see what is required. What's the file name that causes this alert to record? Okay, CMD line, Windows PowerShell, threat ID, and here is another alert. This is the user and this is the process name. The first one, what was the process name? Unknown. Here the process name was Explorer, and that is the file, as you can see, that triggered the alarm, powerview.ps1. Additionally, we have the third one here. The process name is Notepad, and the file name that triggered the alert was PowerView again. Okay, this one again, the process name was PowerShell, and as you can see again that the file that triggered the alert was PowerView. So it was PowerView. Enumerate the firewall rules of the attached Windows machine. What's the port that is allowed under the THM Connection Rule? So let's enumerate the firewall rules here, okay, and filter for THM connection. THM connection rules, okay. Find string THM connection. What's the question? What's the port that's allowed under THM connection rule? So the rule name here is THM connection, and as you can see, it's true. And remove all of this criteria here. Okay. What happened? Getnet firewall rule. Okay. Yeah, so that's it. THM connection inbound to 17,337. Okay, that's it. And of course, you can continue enumerating for other aspects: groups, users, services, scheduled tasks, so on and so forth. Okay, so I want now to get back to the room and answer the rest of the tasks. Let's see here. So what do we have? Application and services. As you can see, we have here questions to answer. Finally, we can see it's listing on port, so I have to follow on the process here. Let's try listing the running services using the Windows command prompt net start to check if there are any interesting running services. We can see a service with the name THM demo here. Yeah, that's the service. Let's look for the exact service name, which we need to find more information about. That's another way to getting the services, by the way. WMIC service where name like THM demo. Okay, that's the service executable. You find the file name and its path. Let's find more details using the get process CMD let. Here you get information about the resource usage of the servers. Okay. And this is the process ID. Let's check if providing a network service by listing the listening ports within the system. And here they are checking if this service is listening on a specific port. In this case, it's listening on port 8080. So finally, we can see it's listening on port 8080. Now try to apply what we discussed and find the port number for THM service. So THM service is supposed to be another service running. Okay, let's take this command here and search for something called THM service. So as always, I need to copy this maybe 1,000 times to be able to paste it here. Okay, so name here should be THM service. So we get the path of the service executable. C Windows THM service. It's a great way to find the path of the executable of a specific service. Okay, and then we need to get the process ID of this process. I think I'm better off writing the command on my own. So get process dash name THM service, and this is the PID of the process. Next is we find out if the process is using or listening on a specific port. What port is listening on? So in this case, we changed the PID to 2720, and it's listening on port 13,337. Visit the local host on the port you found on question 1. What's the flag? Okay, let's find out. And this is your flag. Okay, and we have one question left. So here they are enumerating the DNS. We mentioned that DNS service is commonly used protocol in an Active Directory environment. We perform DNS Zone Transfer using Microsoft tool. Once we execute this, we provide the DNS server that we need to ask, which in this case is the target machine. So if we run NSLOOKUP now on the machine here, let's see what we get. So this is the default server, and this is the address. Okay. Now let's try the DNS Zone Transfer on the domain we find in the AD environment. ls-d DHM red team. The previous output is an example of successfully performing the DNS Zone Transfer. Yes, I transferred the DNS zone here. Okay, now enumerate the domain name of the domain controller THM red team using the DNS lookup and perform a DNS zone transfer. What's the flag for one of the records? Okay. So this is the IP address here. Server. We ask the DNS server 10.10.21.36. Okay, now we perform DNS zone transfer the same way here, as you can see. THM red theme. Yeah, .com. We cannot list domain THM red team non-existent domain. THM read team. It's not read. And suppose we have performed zone transfer here, and this is the flag. So that was it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and I will see you in the next video.